be a badass on the field, and be a badass in the community. And we try to work with our student athletes, and Grace is on the line with us, who runs our development for all our great student athletes, does a great job. And the whole goal, obviously, is to have very successful college and university experiences, but then to do what you have done and others have done, which is to be a badass after graduation, both in your career and in the community, right? Family and everything else included. So we've talked to some amazing people, and so delighted that you were able to join us. And for the team, guys, we attempt to bring in true role models. And I can tell you that with a big smile on my face, we succeeded. I want to give you a couple of stats just to give you a sense. We'll talk about Tracy's life after graduation. But we're talking about somebody who was a career 345 hitter, who was a two-time academic All-America, who led her team the final 3 years there to a 137-17 record. Yes, I said that, 137-17, including a 1987 national championship. All along the way, Tracy graduated with a focus in class as well, with over a 3.8 GPA. Right? She went on to earn a master's degree in journalism from Temple after graduating, by the way, from Trenton State. After graduation, her career began at ESPN, where she excelled as an Emmy Award-winning reporter. 4 years later, while doing work at ESPN, she began doing project works for Fox Sports, where 30 years later, she continues to do great work. If that weren't enough, 10 years after earning her master's from Temple, she went back to Notre Dame to earn a doctorate as a lawyer. For the past 25 years, as an award-winning attorney, Tracy's been representing universities and colleges, athletes, coaches, individuals, Olympic gold medalists, in addition to corporate clients, on issues, really important issues: pay equity, discrimination, retaliation, disability, marginalized employees, among other issues. And in 2005, in recognition of a career of success, both in her career and in community service, Tracy was inducted into the Academic All-America Hall of Fame, of which there are still only about 170 members, right? So of all the Academic All-Americas, Tracy's one of the chosen few. We are very excited, Tracy, to have you here. As we've set this up with great teams, and Terry's here, Coach Terry with her team. The first thing I'm going to ask you is to think back a little bit to those fun years, because we have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and maybe even a grad student on the line. So before we open it up to their questions, my first question to you is, if you think back, can you pick out a memory at all from each of the 4 years as you think about your progress? Because obviously the freshman experience is very different. Now, I think you transfer involved for you as well. So you had put yourself back there and maybe connect with a 4 or 5 year gap between the youngest of our softball players and the oldest of our softball players. Help them kind of connect with you at that level, if you wouldn't mind starting there.
Well, Rick, thank you so much, and thanks for asking me to meet the team and coach. I've read a lot about you guys and I'm amazingly impressed. And it's great that you've got a lot of youth and energy, as Coach Terry calls it. I do remember Trenton State is now called the College of New Jersey, and I had a hitting coach who literally broke me down and built me back up. And you have to be receptive to that as a freshman and sophomore, because you have these tendencies, whether you're playing summer ball or high school ball and you were a success. And he just saw something that he didn't like, and everything I had relied on to get to the college level was taken away. And he literally reconstructed, like Legos, a way that he wanted me to approach mentally and physically my at-bats. And being open to that change. And then I had a really great coach, Dr. June Walker, who had won many national championships. and I would be remiss if I wasn't listening to her. So everything from a fielding or a base running standpoint, I abandon. And that is a huge risk to do at that point of your life because you're so tethered to what got you there. So for the youth there, I say be open to change and ideas, and it doesn't come overnight. Slow and steady is the progression, but it is the journey as much as it is the goal. And that type of mindset, because I remember being deflated and feeling, what is he doing? I couldn't hit for a while, but he started the course correction in fall. And by spring, it had all kind of become, now you're not thinking, it becomes mechanical and you're just hitting. And it was the same with fielding, and it was the same with base running, and really thinking about the game as much as playing the game. I was a big student of watching pitchers. I was a big student of watching catchers when it came to base running. And I was a big student of just watching what the fielders were doing. To, like Coach says, she wants to use foot speed. She wants to put pressure on the defense. So you're watching their tendencies. And that came almost right as I got in, that education upon the education I had. So if I'm giving any tips, I'm saying, and that happens, guys, in every facet of your life. If you change jobs, if you change schools, if you change careers, you've got to be open and adapting to change. That adjustment and how you react to it is going to define your growth in the sport.
Super. So when you think back and again, national championships, 137 and 17, you know, the openness to receive that, but any team memories of the people that you played with and how your teammates, you know, in addition to great coaching, contributed before I turn it to coach.
Yeah, we were really invested in each other. And I think that goes beyond just the field. We got very much attuned to what was going on in other people's lives. We got to know people's parents, their families. And that investment related to a trust, which related to a relationship, which related to when there is stress on the system, meaning you might be behind in a game or you're not playing well, you're able to have that resiliency that bounces back because you know your teammates have you, because you've built that foundation of the relationship and the trust. And it was really working toward the 87 national championship. We had been in the finals, shall we say, or at least the final tournament, my 3 years at the College of New Jersey. And so we were vying for a national championship every year, but it is the losses that specifically stick with me. And what could we have done better? And we essentially did that so that my senior year, we won that national championship. It was at Eastern Connecticut. I remember that. And it was amazing because it was a 1-0 win, and it was a dogfight every step of the way. And at any point you thought our team was just gonna snap because the gravity of the title is right there, yet we could not get some runs across the plate. And I remember I was the leadoff hitter. My coach asked me to bunt, to sacrifice. And she'd never asked me to sacrifice, but there was a runner on first and she wanted to get the runner in scoring position. I had 2 strikes on me. I got the bunt down, moved the runner, and the hitters behind me knocked it in and run in. It was a 1-0 national championship win. And I thought, you got to be able to sacrifice no matter what. And the ego has to go away. And you have to say, this is for the greater good, which is the team. And Rick, as I kind of got into the broadcasting world, and I saw that when I called the Olympic Games in 2000 in Sydney, Australia for NBC, it was with Fernandez in the circle. It was with, Stacey Newman was the catcher, and I'm watching them do the great art of sacrifice for the greater good. In 2000, Team USA had lost 3 games, and they were on the brink of getting knocked out, and they were heavily favored to win the gold. And I saw them close ranks and really claw themselves out of, okay, they were playing for a bronze, well, they beat Australia. Then they're playing for a silver or gold, then they beat Japan and they won the gold. So a lot of that resonated with me. And I take that into my practice as a lawyer, or if I'm broadcasting of, you really got to have that team mentality because the I doesn't work for team success.
So well said. So Terry, I'm going to turn it over to you and to enter your team to get all you can out of this opportunity with Tracy.
Great. Thank you so much. First of all, Tracy, just again, I know you and I spoke briefly before everybody got on, but speaking on behalf of the whole team, we thank you so much for taking the time. This is a great opportunity for us to learn and grow. And I think, it's great to just have a different voice, to really kind of sink in to, the players a little bit as well. But I know some of them have some questions, and I do have a couple for you. Just from a coach's point of view, we do communicate on with the captains, especially about maybe some practices they like or some practices maybe weren't their favorite. And I wanted to kind of see if you had some special practices back when you played that were your favorite. Like, what did you like? And maybe some of the ones that you didn't like.
Yeah, well, coaching these days is a very, it's an art form. So kudos to you for not only doing it, but being a success in doing it. And I hope to watch some of your games this year because I'm excited to see how this talent evolves.
That was great.
I always like to be in motion, whatever it was. There's a lot of standing around in the sport, and so long as I was in motion, it would be when one coach might have the hitters, one coach might have the outfield, one coach might have the infield, and maybe you even have somebody else working on pitchers and catchers. But breaking that down and then bringing it all up together, that way, not only do you have a perspective of what are you supposed to do? I played third base and batted first, but what is everybody else supposed to do with their jobs? And then what does it look like when it comes together? Now, so much of when I'm around coaches today is the mental aspect of it and the sports psychology of it. We didn't have that back in the day, but I had done a lot of reading on the mental approach. Mental approach was huge for me because if you don't have the right mind, you won't have the right mechanics. So the mental approach was my own, but the mechanics were really the coaches kept us in action all the time. And didn't like there really wasn't anything I didn't like. I mean, softball players are notorious for not liking running. I mean, that's just our shtick. That's soccer players and field hockey and lacrosse. But I became a runner after college. I loved it. And then what I was thinking, I didn't like running at the time, but it's probably because I didn't have appreciation for the stamina of long distance running. So I'm encouraging all of you who do not like running, maybe give it a shot because it does build endurance, and that endurance, it helps not only synthesize left-right motion, it helps synthesize your brain processes, but it also, when the stress level kicks in, you'll have some tools to help deal with that.
That's great. I think they love hearing that because they know I'm a running freak and that I love that they run. So some
I
of
can
them
see
love
their
to be on the
faces.
bases, but we started a new running program as well. So, we're really excited about that. So I'm happy to hear that. I have one more question. We talk a lot as coaches about, softball is a game of failure too. And like, it's okay to fail and make those mistakes. It's what you do afterwards and how you learn and grow from that. Can you talk about if you had any experiences with that or just your thought process on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time we were vying for a World Series title. We lost pretty much out of the gate, and we had to sit there and watch the other teams compete, which was excruciating because you knew you could perform better than you did. But that discomfort of losing and failure sat with all of us for a year until we could get back together and work toward the common good. And that actually was a great teaching moment for us because failure isn't, hey, I didn't succeed. Failure is, I'm learning more tools to get to the next step. And I think if we all remember that, whether it's in athletics or academics, that resiliency is going to help you bounce back. And that's the bigger teachable moment than it is, hey, I just didn't do something right there. I struck out. I didn't move the runner, whatever.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think my assistant, Sarah, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? And then I know there's some players that also had some questions. And this is Sarah St. John, one of my assistant coaches.
Hi, yeah. I had one written down that I thought, well, you did a really good job of talking about like the difference in between like your sophomore year competing versus senior year. But did you see any difference? Because obviously you were able to be in a leadership position your senior year, in your leadership style and how that may have contributed to your team's success.
You know,
And not just yours too. Like
no,
your other captains and all that.
it's great to meet you, Sarah. You know what? I think from my sophomore to my junior and junior to senior, so my sophomore, junior, I started taking better care of my body, watching what I was eating, probably running more, getting more mentally attuned to what I could do well. Um, I knew that if I was actually firing on all cylinders, like actually focusing on every part of my game, that I could have some growth potential. Um, and that is, I think, the biggest leap and the biggest growth that I saw. That's my junior and senior year, I got both academic and athletic All-American. And then my senior year, I got academic, athletic, and we won a national championship. But I became really attuned to the, hey, I've got to eat right. I've got to have the right level of fitness. I got to be able to endure stress, the psychological part. So those components, I didn't appreciate that as a freshman. I thought, you know what, I'm good. I'm just going to show up and you're gonna watch. And just the opposite happened. I got rebuilt. And um, so I think each year you can find a part of your game that you can work on. And really each year of your life, we're all works in progress, right? Every year we're trying to improve. So having an open mind, but having enough emotional intelligence and self-awareness to know what you're not doing good at, accepting it, and then getting to work to make it better.
Excellent. I think it's hard to sometimes, self-evaluate and, you want to, and also you think about working on the things that only you do well, not the things you don't do well. You know what I mean? So, it's hard sometimes, but I think this team in general, just what the coaching staff has seen so far is just a lot of togetherness with the team and hard work. And, everybody's here for the right reasons and looking to put in everything they've got every day. And it's just exciting. It's really exciting to see, and the talent that these young ladies have and understanding as they do. Like you talked about team versus and I see that. And I think my coaches can speak up as well as hopefully the captains and the rest of you guys can say it as well. As this, the team first is really something that I feel these young ladies are definitely taken care of and watching and making sure that they're putting that first. So that's awesome. Wanted to just open it up to some of the players that have some questions. I know there's a few of them. Lexi, do you want to go first? This is Lexi Bale, our only junior.
Hi, Lexi.
Yeah, we had two questions for you actually. The first one was, you have had a very decorated career, as we've heard, and do you have any advice for student athletes like entering the job market, like that transition from student athlete life to now, the career end of side of things?
Great question. Network, get on LinkedIn. It's life, like sport, is a contact sport. The more people you can get to know you as an individual, the better off you are. And I always thought, as a female athlete, my talent is going to carry me, and people will see that talent and reward that talent. And I am the managing shareholder of my office, which is majority women attorneys. And they always say to me, well, I'm doing good. Shouldn't I get rewarded? I'm like, no, no, no. You got to get to know as many people as you possibly can, and open your door when someone knocks, and knock on people's door to have them open, so you can take that next step in career advancement. Candidly, Lexi, it was a really hard transition for me to go from undergrad to then graduate school, where I didn't have softball as an undergrad and I was just focused on getting my master's degree. And so there was an absence, and that's when I started broadcasting. I thought, I need to get involved in sports. So there is going to be an adjustment. There always are for athletes. And it'll be a bit of a, whoa, I just lost my team. I kind of lost my identity. I lost my daily routine. And now I'm sitting in a potentially more sedentary job. What am I going to do to make this adjustment? And I think talking to a lot of people who have graduated from Bentley or that you know in your circle, whether it be in Connecticut or at Bentley, that you go ahead and find those role models and feel what those pitfalls. For me, being sedentary is the hardest thing in the world. So I work out at like 5:30 in the morning and get a lot of the energy going. And I have 2 Labradors, so I walk them at night. So that is good, but it's also good for everything else going on in your world, if that answers your question.
It does, thank you. I think me and like a lot of the upperclassmen who are gonna be soon transitioning was it's very like useful for that. And then the other question that we had that kind of relates is sorry, I'm pulling it up. Has softball taught you anything that you continue to use throughout your professional career and so on, like in everyday life that you learned, I guess?
No, it's a great question. Yes, teamwork. The reason I am the only female managing shareholder, we have 12 offices. I'm the only female. And why? Is because I played sport. And why? Because I always am worried about the team. And we went 6 years ago from being 2 people to we're closing in on 100 because I believe in building camaraderie and building teamwork and talking to people like they're people, not always performers. There's a difference. You've got to get to know the human being that is the performer. If you care about them unconditionally, especially women will do anything for you if they know you care about them. Men, not so much. No offense, Rick, but it's like I have 3 older brothers and we talk about this all the time. It's women, if you care about them, they will care about you and perform. Guys sometimes I want the numbers, I want the medals, I want the publicity. So softball has told me put other people first, kind of being that servant leader, but also when times get tough, that's when you need to rally around each other. I have a saying that I will never finger point, that I will always pick other people up because blame doesn't get anybody anywhere. So when times are tough, that is the time when your teammates need you the most. And that's something softball has taught me exponentially because both in my broadcasting career and my law career, I have a lot of strong personalities, whether it be a professional athlete or a lawyer or a judge. And you've got to know how to press buttons so that you're all getting along toward a common goal, and kind of be astute enough to know when to pivot if you have to.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all of the advice you just have given us. Thank you.
You've got it. Have a great season.
Thank you, Lexi. Ava Lanzer is one of our sophomores. I know she has some questions for you.
Yeah, we just have one question actually. Is there any advice you have for women in a male-dominated work field?
That is a question both in broadcasting and law that I have gotten. Yes, make friends with the guys. Though they're not your adversaries. They're there to help lift you up. And some aren't. But be smart enough to recognize your champions and work hard because you will be managed or scrutinized twice as hard as the guys in a male-dominated field. It's just the world we live in. But if you're working hard and you've got that Northeast work ethic, you don't have to worry about it. That's going to take care of itself. The other thing is you've got to learn to self-promote. Women don't self-promote at all. We think being kind of that quiet, you'll just see me work is enough. Men learned the art of self-promotion from day one. So lift your sisterhood up, lift your brotherhood up, and find men that are going to champion you. When I was a broadcaster in Philadelphia, I broadcast Philadelphia 76ers. I was their feature reporter. There's an athlete named Charles Barkley. I don't know if any of you know him. He played for the Sixers at that time. And I was the only woman going in the locker room. So not only was that like in and of itself different, they would yell as soon as I would go in the locker room, "Woman coming in the locker room." And then the guys would do one of two things. They'd either pull up their drawers or they'd pull them down because they wanted to either get along or intimidate, right?
Yeah.
But Barkley took me under his wing for whatever reason. And maybe he realized that I was one in a minority and he probably resonated with him. And he made sure I was the cool factor to the team. So he would give me the first interviews. And on the team back then was a guy named Rick Mahorn, Hersey Hawkins, Johnny Dawkins, and Mike Jaminski. He would make sure they would all give me the attention that he wanted me to have. And he would make it a special point during games to like come over as he saw me and greet me. That having that champion smoothed over everything. So not only did the Sixers and their coaching staff realize it, then other teams started to see it. So when I had to interview the Pistons, if they were playing the Sixers or the Celtics for you guys up there, they were much more accommodating to me because they watched Charles do it. So my advice is find that champion for you and make friends, but realize that their intent is genuine. They really want to see you be a success.
Thank you.
That's a great lead into this. You mentioned like, stand up for yourself and kind of promote yourself and self promote. Sometimes I feel if a woman is to say something direct and a man says it, is two different, people take it in two different ways. So I think that's finding that happy medium. Would you say that's true, or do you know what I mean?
We're still evolving. I agree with you, Coach.
Yeah.
We're still evolving. It's gotten better, especially on the coasts in Massachusetts and kind of the East Coast and then the West Coast. It has gotten better, but there still is that, it still is that standard of, well, she's being harsh. Well, he's being forceful.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find, Becky Hammond coaching in the NBA and then going to the WNBA Aces. She's amazing, but she's using the same tools she used with the NBA as she's using with the WNBA. And now nobody's questioning that. It's all accepting. So I do think you've got to let that roll off your back. That's more about the person who's saying it about you than it is about you.
Yeah.
Be true to you, be authentic, and that will carry the day.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you. And we have one more. Carly Demento, one of our freshmen, has a question for you.
Um, a lot of our goals for the season is to win the NE10, and you said you won a championship your senior year. Did you notice any change in like your team's mentality or your own mentality?
I think you're going to win the NE10. If you're all in the same boat, you're gonna win it. Yes, we thought we could. There was a belief. So we had that seed planted my sophomore year is we had to watch others at the tournament, and that loss sat with us. And then the following year, we came very close and we lost in the championship. So we finally believed that we could do it. And that in and of itself will drive you when you're down 5 runs, or when your pitcher is having an off day, or when your best hitters aren't seeing the ball as well. You've got to have a belief in yourself and in each other. And we constantly did. And that was what got us over the edge. And I think if you guys can have that tool and get to know each other. I was telling Coach before a lot of you jumped on, in my legal practice, I represent Oklahoma's softball coach, Patty Gasso, and Oklahoma's won 8 national championships. And I often ask her, because she's very measured, but she never takes it for granted that this season they're going to win. And I mean, they have won back to back to back, which is amazing, never done yet in softball. And I said to her, what is it? Like, what is the change? And she said, every year is different, but there is a belief that we can do it. And we know we're going to face the pressure. Everybody wants to beat Oklahoma. Everybody's going to want to beat Bentley, right? They're going to want to beat, you want the NE10? Well, they want it too. So they're going to come after you. But there was a belief and an expectation that this was all going to play itself out, and Oklahoma was going to withstand the attack, and so will you guys. So I think getting that planted into your captains, to your upper class, and then getting the buy-in from the sophomores and the freshmen is key to the success. Because as freshmen, you're like, wow, what's happening? As sophomores, you're just watching this evolve. But there should be an expectation that, yeah, we can do this. We can. So I think, Carla, if you take that mentality, and I think it's going to help you quite a bit.
Thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're welcome.
Right. Does anybody else have any questions? I know you had some questions put out there, but is anybody else just through the conversation have anything that they may want to bring up or ask while we have Tracy?
Well, I'll tell you, we talked about leadership real quick.
I
and
have a
there-
quick question, actually.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you for coming out, first of all. And you talked a little bit about your career, but could you touch more on breaking into the sports industry, just because I know that's a challenging field to get into?
Absolutely. So I grew up with three older brothers and a father that loved Philadelphia sports. So I'm a huge Philadelphia sports fan. Sorry, Boston fans. I know that there's a little bit of a rivalry in some of our sports, but my mother could care less. So my mother was the academic side, my father was the athletic side. So I knew at a very early age that I wanted to get into sports, but I was willing to take any job that I could possibly get, whether that was holding audio cables, holding a camera, or getting in front of the camera. And you have to be ready to take the baby steps to ascension. So because you are already going to be a minority, you're going to be hyper scrutinized, and people are going to be skeptical about whether you can perform. It's gotten better, but you should be prepared. And that's just noise. You just have to block that out to know that you love what you do and you're going to continue to do everything you can. And somebody there is going to recognize it and you're going to be able to succeed. So I broke into sports basically by calling people in the sports industry. I took every job I could possibly take, whether it was through cable or it was through ESPN or even NBC Sports. Money was not a big factor for me. It was my passion for the profession. And that I understood was opening doors to me left and right. So as long as you are able and open to change, and oftentimes that's a change of location. I had to move to Michigan to take a sports job with an NBC affiliate out of the East Coast. You're going to be okay. And you're going to find those folks. Be educated, know your market, know the players that make decisions. That's athletes and in business, but constantly keep making contacts because in sports, as much as anything else, it is about a who you know profession. And unfortunately, in broadcasting, the shelf life goes up and it goes down. It goes up and goes down. And in COVID, most of my broadcasting friends lost their job because they weren't broadcasting or they were sitting in their home doing the broadcast and weren't traveling. You have to be ready for that and have a plan B, which is really where my career came. My father loved me in sports. My mother loved me in law. And so I'm Irish Catholic. I made them both happy and hopefully, it worked. But where it really showed itself, the plan B was in COVID when all my broadcasting friends were losing money, dipping into their savings. So if you are pursuing a career in sports, make a lot of connections, get on LinkedIn, connect with everyone, and go meet them and talk to them. Like you all now know me through Coach and through Rick. You always can contact me. If you want to do this for a living, you can, whatever it is you want to do for a living. I'm get you one step closer to where you want to be. Rick will, Coach will. We're there for you. And then when somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, can you tell me how I can go there, Jordan? You open that door and you help them. That's all what it's about, especially women in sports. We are lifting each other up and we'll continue to do it.
Yeah, Tracy, the only thing I'd add to that, I double down on the networking comment, but I will tell you that we still have a long way to go in terms to get to the equality and equity that we all on this call, Zoom, believe should be there. But the idea, and I do a lot of work with the Bentley Center of Women in Business, and I'm very involved in male allyship. right? And both from the men perspective and from the female perspective, but I'd encourage everybody in the call, just don't make assumptions, right? You will find people out there of all ages, males, who don't get it yet, right? But you'll be surprised how many do. So if you go in optimistic, realistic, but the whole male allyship thing, and there's no question right now, we're still biased in too many areas. But I would just encourage you to don't make assumptions, whether it's age or any other venue, any other element, because there are an awful lot of people who do want to do the right thing. And the right thing is reward talent, period. Reward talent and hard work, which is Tracy's what's all about. So I just want to, there's no question that women are pulling each other up. But on behalf of the token male on the Zoom, there's a lot of men who want to be part of elevating talent.
100%, Rick. And one of the things, I'm outside counsel for a group called Women Leader in Sports, and one of our allies is Scott Pioli, a former NFL player, and he used to be the GM for the Chiefs, and he's with the New England Patriots. He's Bill Parcells' son-in-law, and he is advocating for women in sports all the time. So what he's done with his NFL platform is he's raised our visibility for opportunities, whether it be in the NFL or any pro sports. And for not having Scott as an ally, if we just went in with that mindset of he's a dude, he's a football player, he doesn't care about us. He is just the opposite. He is so passionate about women's sports. He's invested in the Women's Sports Foundation. He's helped our board out. He is fantastic. And the women on this Zoom, you have Rick. That's amazing. You're in Massachusetts. It's a very liberal state which believes in equality, which is amazing. And you're already ahead of the game, but you've got to work that network, both male and female.
That's great. I always say stand tall, stand strong too. We have strong women, I think, on this team. So, and they have great voices. So we're excited. Thank you so much. I think that's everything, Rick, for questions right now, and Tracy. But I know, Rick, you may want to close it out, but I just want to say again, thank you on behalf of all of our players and student athletes, our coaching staff. We're ecstatic that we had this opportunity to meet with you tonight.
Coach, thank you so much. You got a great team, and I can't wait to hear about you come spring.
We'll be keeping in touch for sure.
Awesome.
Tracy, thanks for leaning in. Team, thanks for participating. Again, you just had a huge door open for you. When Tracy Warren says she wants to be part of your network, if I'm connecting with Tracy, by the way, Tracy and I are connected on LinkedIn. If all 19 or 17 of you are not connected with Tracy in the next week on LinkedIn, I'm going to be real direct. You're missing a no-brainer opportunity. She just opened the door, stepped through it. That's my nudge for the evening.
Absolutely. And Rick, thank you for setting this up too. We want to thank you as well. I know you set this up, and we saw for you and Grace. You and Grace.
Happy to do it. Grace, anything else that we're missing?
No, exactly what you said. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to have this conversation anyways. You guys might not realize it now, but you will in a few years' time, which is the whole point of this. And so, Tracy, thank you so much for, donating your time to us to talk to them about, two really hard industries to break into, sports and law, to be honest. So just thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, you guys. You're all doing the right thing. You're in education, which is what it's all about, and in sport, which is what it's all about. And I'm here anytime, especially for you, Grace, for Coach, for Rick. I just can't wait to see you all evolve and develop, and then hear about you come spring.
Awesome.
Tracy, I'll be reaching out for sure. Thank you.
You got it, Coach. Rick, thank you so much.
Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.